Hi guys, how are ya? Thank you for joining me today. Today we are trying for the first time a couple of different things actually. Um, one of which is the black watercolor paper. This one is Stonehenge, the cold press as pictured above. And the other is, well, right now we're drawing on the black watercolor paper with the very thin white Prismacolor pencil. Wasn't sure which one was going to work the best. This is, I think, one of the first ones I picked up and it worked fine coloring on the watercolor paper. But since I haven't used the black watercolor paper, there's a lot of possibilities to start with. But I happen to have a set of, it's like pastel watercolors by Derwent that I have swatched out but really never used. And then there's a set of opaque watercolors that I have that I got from a sketch, one of the subscription things that I belong to. And I have used that maybe once or twice in like a small sketchbook. And I really like those, the opaque watercolors. But I thought because they were opaque, that they would lend themselves a little bit more to the black watercolor paper. And then for the Derwent, because they're pastel, I thought that they would lend themselves well. So first thing I noticed with this watercolor paper is that it's very soft. And by that, I mean not very heavy duty. So while I was putting the tape on, I put it on a little crooked and needed to reposition it. And it was already, really rough on the paper. And a lot of times, I'll use the heat gun taking off the tape if it's been on there for a little while or what have you. But typically, it doesn't just rip it right off the bat. So that was a little discerning. So we'll have to see how, I'll definitely use the heat gun taking it off. I'm a little worried that it's going to be ruined regardless with this regular masking tape. I've tried with just using like the regular washi tapes and stuff, but typically those don't hold on tight enough. And maybe I just haven't tried very many, but it's like either it holds on too tight and, wants to take the paper with it, or it comes off too easily. And then you're left halfway through your artwork with the tape coming off. So I like this blue masking tape. And most of the time I don't have a problem. And if I do a little bit, then the heat, no problem. Because the heat, when you use the heat gun around it, it releases the sticky adhesive and it comes right off. So here I've drawn a little flower picture on the left and the right. And I'm writing at the top which watercolor sets that I'm using so that we don't forget. So this is the Derwent pastel set that I was talking about. And it is, they call it pastel shades paint. I'm pretty sure it's watercolor. They are very chalky though. I noticed painting these. You can mix it up a bit and you'll see here I'm mixing up the greens and stuff, but it's the depth of color is not very deep. I mean, it's a cool set, don't get me wrong. And because it's going on like the dark watercolor paper, I thought that maybe it would really, really pop. And it looks cool, but it's handled a little differently. I don't know that I've used it on white paper. I think the only other time that I used it, I think, was on like a craft color paper or like off-white paper. So here I'm mixing up a couple greens because I want to, try out, like, do each of the greens of each flower a little bit different and kind of give it some depth. But it's like, as you can see, it's really hard to kind of get like very different greens. There's only so much depth of color here. Everything. And so this is really interesting paper. It's marketed as watercolor paper, but it kind of feels like everything is just sitting on the top. Like, it doesn't really feel like water. I was really, really hoping this was going to be like watercolor paper, like arches, but black. That's what I really, really wanted it to be. And so far, it kind of is much more. It's definitely not like painting on just regular paper. It definitely is more like watercolor paper, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't like absorb and blend the way I was hoping. And maybe it's something to do with the paints. I'll continue trying some different paints out. Like, nothing's wrong with the paper or the paints and stuff like that. I just was thinking it was going to be a little bit different. And I think each of the pieces came out pretty cool in the end. Just kind of trying stuff out to see to use different stuff. A lot of times we stick to the same old stuff that we're, getting used to. And it's just fun to try out different things. And see, even here, like, I'm trying to put on the different greens and stuff like that. I guess maybe if I went, far outside the box and started really, but there's really just not a lot of darker, deep colors or, that I could really shade with and stuff like that. So it's really cool, but, I don't know, I'll keep trying to play with it, but it's like I could only go so far, as far as like a real watercolor picture with them, I think anyway. So I'm using the same brushes that I use regularly watercoloring. This one is the Black Velvet. I don't know if I switched to anything else. I think that's mainly what I use. If anything, it might be the Princeton Snap or something. I think I just kind of stuck with the regular brushes that I use so that, I could get a feel for it. It's funny, when it dries, it goes like a little bit even lighter and whiter. And it's just got like that chalky feel, I suppose, because it's got that pastel look to all of them. It's not just pastel color, but it's like a pastel chalky kind of look with it. I should have tried it with some watercolors on the top to push it further and stuff. I didn't, but maybe that's something I can do in the future. I love Derwent stuff. In fact, I'm going to do a video coming up. I have, from one of the subscription boxes, I have some little set of the bricks of color of the ink tints, and I've got about a handful of the ink tints pencils, and I've swatched those a little bit. I haven't played around with them too much, but I think those look really, really cool. And Derwent, can't think off the top of my head, but I know pencils and other stuff, like everything I've tried Derwent, I really like. So there's not any kind of thing on them. It's just, sometimes you're looking for something that's more chalky and stuff for different reasons. So I thought I was putting two similar things kind of together, but really they're kind of different. And so I don't know if this is kind of sitting on the paper because of the kind of paint that this is, or if it is the paper. I think it kind of does it to the Sketchbox Opaque Watercolor as well, but I think it sits a little bit more on top on this one. And so it's a small set, but I was trying to, mix some different colors and stuff like that, but it's hard to get too far outside of the box on these ones. So I was kind of going with like a orangey into red kind of deal, and then, yellow into the orange on the other one. It was definitely fun to paint and work with. Like, I'll tell you that. Like, it was easy to control, and I thought it was a lot of fun. No problems there. And I was starting to go a little thicker as I was getting used to it. Instead of layering out because of, the consistency of it, I thought that would, pop a little bit better. And yeah, I was trying to leave a little bit of the, because I didn't know how it would, said I was trying to leave a little bit of a space in between the petals and stuff so that, so I was kind of trying to use the darkness of the paper shining through, um, as, shadow and stuff like that. But it kind of worked out a little bit, but that was only where I really didn't put too much paint over top of it. Um, you can kind of see it drying up on that left side, where it's still wet, where it's, you can kind of see it as it's drying up. I should have done a few more layers to see if you can layer over it really well or if it kind of pulls back up. But again, like I said, I'll experiment a little bit more with this going forward. The yellow is really pretty, especially against the black. It super opaque and super pretty on there. Again, like it was fun to use. Has anybody used any paints that they really liked on this? Has anybody used the black watercolor paper, the cold press that we're using here? Has anybody tried anything that they liked with it and had any good experiences, bad experiences? And so, like I said, I really wasn't getting the lights and darks and stuff like I wanted. So I played around just a little bit of going over it with some of the different colors and stuff. And I thought it looked cute. And it didn't pull the color back up. I forgot about this. I was a little bit afraid, is it going to pull the orange back up? But I don't think it did. I think it just layered over top pretty nicely. Everything is just kind of the same. What is it? This, not the same hue, but the same light and dark. It's the same, like if you turn this picture black and white, it's like there's not really lights and darks. And that's, I think, what I've noticed about these paints, and that's what's tricky. And so maybe, like I was saying, if you do lighter and thicker versions of it, maybe using the paper as lights and darks. So I think it's just kind of very bland that way. There's not, dark darks and lights on it. It's all kind of an even consistency. So I'm just kind of trying to kind of outline a little bit / darken it up, like a little bit of differences in there. See, again, even that red, as it dries, it's kind of dulling down into that like muted pink. It doesn't keep that like vibrancy as much as I was hoping it would. So this right here, this is Sketchbox Opaque Watercolor. And like I said, I've used this one like, I want to say like at least a couple of times in some smaller sketchbooks. And I know one was like on a craft sketchbook. It was kind of like just watercolor sketchbook, but it was a little bit more than tan. It was more of like a brown. And that one came out really, I really liked it every time I used it. And I just thought that because it was more of an opaque of a watercolor, but not quite gouache, that it might pop really well on this black watercolor paper, which the yellow is most certainly popping on here. And again, it's really smooth. It's nice coloring with it. And again, I've never really used any of the black watercolor paper. Maybe, I could be going about it differently on both of these. So this one seems to be going into the paper a little bit more, except for where it's piled up a lot, then it's a little bit more opaque, like on the surface. But it does seem to be going into the paper, like I was talking about before, a little bit more than the one on the left. I mean, they're both really cool, but if anybody was curious on, the black watercolor paper or any of these two paints themselves, and like I said, let me know down below if you've used something that you really had a good time painting with on this paper, or something like that, or a different kind of paper. Did you, maybe you don't use this kind, but you've used something that you had a real good experience with? I was just really interested in it. I mean, like I said, I tried the sketchbook that I have that is kind of like that off white, more of like a brown, and that one's a lot of fun, like tannish brown kind of paper. But I just thought like the black watercolor paper would be super cool. Although I guess it's kind of weird because it's working backwards. So often when you watercolor, is like you're thinking about it from a lighter surface. So maybe it's just backwards in my head, of doing lighter layers and you want something darker, and vice versa and stuff. So this one is on the opaque side, especially if you build up the color. But again, still it's sitting on the surface, even on where it's not like built, the color's not super, super built up. So it's different than most watercolor paper I've used like that. Although it's not buckling at all or anything like that. So it can take the wet of the paper. It's just really different. I think it can lend itself to some really cool pieces, with some good experimentation and stuff. So even that one, the Derwent one on the left where it's dried, I put it on, I think fairly healthy, not like super, super thick. And it's like you can't really see the dark underneath except in a little bit of the areas. And I wonder if maybe that's a mistake I made. Maybe I should have really been more methodical about where I was doing super light layers where I wanted it darker and so forth. So here I'm layering up the flowers. It's taking the layers just fine. So I think the next thing I want to try on this watercolor paper is gouache. And I'm not sure if I want to do the acrylic gouache or the jelly gouache, or, like the high-end gouache, debating. Or maybe I should do, what do you guys think? Or do another piece where I'm doing two different kinds of gouaches, like maybe even the same piece with two different things. What do you guys think? Let me know down below if you've got any ideas or something you want to see. But I was thinking about maybe doing something underwater, like a sea turtle, something like that. I'm fully decided, but that's kind of what I was thinking with. Man, that yellow really pops. It's really pretty against that black. I mean, all the colors, I think, with both sides are really pretty against the black. There on this one too, I was trying to leave like a little bit of space in between it so I didn't just lose all the shapes of the petals and everything started looking like big blobs. So now I'm trying to cover up that black watercolor paper that I left the spaces in with like a darker red, giving it some darks. I mean, none of this is like has any reference photos or anything. I was just kind of playing around. And maybe that's where, I'm not really sure where I'm putting my darks and my lights and stuff like that. I'm kind of just winging it. But I don't know, I see some real possibilities with these. What do you guys think? Let me know down below if you guys are liking the way these are looking on the watercolor paper, if you've tried it before, and you had a different experience or what have you. So here I'm just trying to get in some, at least some darker, some with the darker green, give it some lights and darks in there, so that it's not just all completely flat, like cell shade. So definitely messed up the edges, so won't be taping that again. But let me know, guys, below what you guys think. And thank you for being here, and check out the next video. Definitely be doing some more with the black watercolor paper. Thank you.